You're listening to a lifestyle podcast with Lovoni and Sarah. Our goals: to inspire good health and well-being, empowerment, beauty and joy, offering support and friendship as we share our journeys in the hopes it helps you. Hello my friends, and thanks for tuning in to what was once the Waiting Room podcast. I'm Lovoni, and together with my co-host Sarah, we want to let you know our podcast has changed its name from the Waiting Room podcast to simply Lovoni and Sarah. Now, along with the name change, we're doing some rebranding and developing a website, all very exciting, and we'd love you to come along on this adventure with us.
The Waiting Room podcast is a no-nonsense approach to regaining good health, losing weight and feeling better, peppered with helpful lifestyle tips and cooking inspiration. Join me, Sarah Holton,
and me, Lovoni Walker, as we talk frankly about the impact on mental and physical health when riding the weight loss and gain roller coaster.
We traverse the nutritional and fitness misinformation highway and discuss what's working for us and what doesn't, with raucous and sometimes sad but relatable stories.
Follow us on our journeys to health and well-being as we help to inspire others to feel their best with a simplistic approach to eating thoughtfully and living abundantly.
This is the Get to Know Us episode, where we share our backgrounds and journeys, who we are, what we're doing to regain our health and vibrancy, and why we decided to finally take control of our health and well-being and share this with you, our listeners. I'm Sarah. I've thought, how do I introduce myself at a party? Welcome to our party, by the way, everyone. I've often thought about it, and I always lead with facts that are probably the least relevant to a person that we're engaging with. Although actually it's probably very relevant to you listening now for the first time and wanting to know the nitty-gritty details about us all. So here we are. I'm Sarah, 46, not long before 47, who lives in Malmesbury, Wiltshire, England. I have a 17-year-old son who I've brought up at home with my 2 dogs by myself. I hate saying I'm a single parent. I think it paints a picture of someone that's been abandoned or sort of struggling, and I don't see myself like that. He spends plenty of time with his dad. We co-parent, but the fact of the matter is I have been at home with him for nearly 14 years on my own, although now I'm in a very happy relationship and it's really nice to share the good and difficult times with someone. I run my own business based around my illustrations, and I've created a home decor and gift brand. But most relevant to our conversations here is I've been overweight since the age of 4. I've been all different shapes and sizes, and I guess we can get into more about that later, about why. But recently I've had surgery for a full right hip replacement, and I'm waiting on surgery for the left hip to be replaced. So health has now become, and has had to become, top of my list. So that's me in a nutshell. Lovoni, what about you?
I hail from Sydney, Australia. I am just turned 57. With a dog and a husband, and I live in Indiana now. I'm actually a US citizen, but I have moved a lot. I moved from Sydney to Canada in the dead of a Canadian winter. I lived in Canada for 9 years. Then I moved to Montana in the US, and I've lived in about 4 different states here, and I think every time I moved I put on weight because it was the one constant, at least food was the one constant in my life. It sort of became a friend, that thing that was always here. And so now I'm at crossroads. I lost both my parents in 2022, about 3.5 months apart, and figured that this was but like not even a new chapter. It's like a new book in my life, to start afresh if you want, or maybe not afresh because I've learned a lot. So I think it's maybe starting from a better place on this journey. I like to call it a journey so it doesn't seem as daunting. I have spent most of my life until I moved to Canada as just a regular weight. Looking back now, when I thought I was overweight, I actually wasn't. I was, a good weight for my height, but have learnt from my mum and I guess media or whoever you want to blame that you always need to be on a diet. When in actuality I didn't. But like I said, every time I moved, I put on weight. So my background's in food media. I have worked within the publishing and TV industries for the last 25 or so years. I decided when I had both my knees replaced in 2022 to study nutrition. I still want to lose weight, write a book to help people, or create a podcast like Sarah and I are doing. But I wanted to do it from a place where I knew about good nutrition. I just didn't want to be somebody that had lost weight and decided to tell the world without any credentials. No offense to anybody that's done that, but that's what I wanted to do. So anyway, I went and I studied nutrition. So I'm also a nutritionist. So I write cookbooks, I do food styling, food photography, and create recipes for people. But I'm very interested in health and getting my health back to where it used to be. I believe that no matter your age, you can feel better than you ever have in your life. I've seen many people that have done that.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. So it doesn't matter if you're 65, 70, or 25. If you are either battling with weight, feel generally tired, unhealthy, I think that it doesn't matter. You can still regain your health and vitality without, deprivation, because I believe in nourishment, not punishment. And I think, Sarah, that's one of the things that we're also going to talk about is food. Like what Sarah and I have cooking, what works for us, what doesn't, definitely. And maybe we'll chat about some of the crazy diets that we've been on. Because I don't know, I think I'm a bit of a serial dieter, but I've finally stopped because, learning that there is no shortcut, right?
You're right. I think we'll get to this, but it's leaning into food and what food can do for you rather than leaning away from food, which then, as you just described, is the deprivation and all that sort of stuff. So that's what we can then really think about, leaning into the right foods and what it's going to do for you in the nutrition. But It's interesting just listening to you there. And obviously, even though we know each other's stories and know each other really well, what I'm hearing now is almost like a fresh piece of information that we're both at exactly the same place, which is why this is really, really great for us to talk on openly and on this podcast, because we're both at a crossroads. Me, because of the fact that I feel like, I've got this one new hip, the other one's coming. It's now that I need to make the most of these things. Because otherwise I'm just going to have gone through all of this for literally no reason. And it's been really tough, really, really tough. And I've still got a long way to go. So we're both at crossroads, but for different reasons and with different backgrounds. I've always been overweight. You haven't. And we've probably got similar reasons why we are overweight, or we've had different relationships with food. And I know we have, our relationship with food often is very similar.
Right.
But we've had different backgrounds, but that's kind of almost doesn't make any difference of the place we find ourselves now, which is this absolute crossroads. This is the chance,
right.
And as you just described there, it's not too late. And every single day when you wake up, it's not to say, oh, yesterday was a bad day, so I've binned it all off. It's absolutely, and even hour by hour,
right.
You can just go, well, no, now is the time. And we've both got really good examples, I'm sure, of people that we've seen around us, even I have within my own close circle of how it works, and you can do that. It's just it's not writing everything off, isn't it?
No, and being aware too. The day that my mum died, I was standing at because she's in Australia and I was in the US, and I was standing at the kitchen sink. Just I can't remember what it was I was eating, but I was just eating, and it was like my solace. This was going to comfort me. And then I stopped when I realised what I was doing. But then different to that, when my father died, and once again, he was in Australia and I was here in the US, I went completely the opposite.
Okay.
I felt like I'd been gut punched. I think because Mum had been, sick with
Yeah.
dementia for so long, and for me and my sister, it was a shock when our father
Yeah.
died. So I think that but it's just being aware of. It's one thing to eat, right? To eat your
Yeah.
meals and things, but when you're just doing it mindlessly, or that it's not something that's going to make you feel good inside and out.
It's interesting when you just made that description though, so I can relate to that with regards to emotional sort of breakups or emotional pain, over the last 20 years or whatever. And if this didn't happen to me until much further on into my adult life, I'd always been sad and ate. So
Right.
when something sad happened to me, I would eat, and I would eat really awful, crappy food, comfort food, carbs, the whole thing, sugar. And then it's only more in my more recent adult life, I suddenly had where I got really upset, like I had a really horrible breakup, and I was devastated. Whole host of reasons when I then delved into it afterwards, but regardless, the impact on me, I was really, really devastated, and I stopped eating, and
Right.
I could not eat. I mean, and friends were trying to force me just to have a bit of something. And I lost loads and loads of weight, unintentionally, as in I wasn't trying to lose weight. I just
Right.
couldn't eat.
Right.
So upset. And I can even remember at the time thinking, wow, this has never happened to me before, ever.
Right.
And because I always, people sort of said I was so upset, or I couldn't eat. I'm thinking, what on earth are you talking about? I've never experienced in my life a moment when I can't eat.
But when people say they're stressed, I just don't eat when I'm stressed. I think, oh, well, I do the opposite. If I'm stressed,
Exactly.
It's the first thing I
Yeah.
turn to. And I think when I look at each time I moved, when I first moved to Canada, and I would just eat without thinking about it, and then I'd gain a bit of weight, and I'd think, oh, I'm going to lose that. But each time I've moved, I've put on more. So whether it was state to state, beg your pardon?
Like a comfort thing then.
Yeah, because I left. Obviously, when I moved from Sydney, I left family and friends behind and a life that I had for 35 years. And you moved to Canada where I knew nobody except for the man that I shacked up with there. But then when I left him, when he and I broke up, and I moved to Montana, and I was by myself with my two dogs, and then it wasn't so bad. I was trying to not do that, but it still would creep in. And then I met my husband, and moved to Minnesota, where once again I didn't know anybody but him, and then I would cook these fabulous meals because I couldn't work. I wasn't allowed to work in the US yet. So he'd be at work all day and I'd be cooking, these wonderful roasts and these big meals. So we both put on weight.
Yeah.
And then, then I moved from, places in Minnesota, and it just kept snowballing each place, left Minnesota, left my friends that I'd made there, moved to Florida. And you think, well, it's so hot there that I'd lose weight. But no, even though I was biking every day, I was having cocktails and just comfort eating, I'm sure. But I didn't realize it at the time. This is a recent epiphany I had.
So when you said like you felt like you could, obviously were really conscious of you eating when your mum died, you haven't had that consciousness then when you gained weight in all those other different places.
No,
this was just
I didn't think about the fact that it was the one constant in my life and became like a friend. Like I've heard people say that about smoking cigarettes, that they don't want to give up because it's like their friend. It's that one thing that they do and they enjoy it.
Yeah, because I've almost got the opposite to that, I think when I'm eating mindfully, so I've chosen my meal, like if you're out, for example, at a restaurant, I've chosen my meal, I've chosen something that I really, really want. Hopefully I've not overeaten before I've gone there. So you can, that feeling when you're like, oh, I can't wait to have this meal and I've enjoyed it. I've got a really loving relationship with food then. I love it. And people would say, look at, because I'm overweight, like you must love blue food. Look at you're overweight. I actually don't. Outside of that, I have quite a hateful dislike of the way that I'm eating, when I'm in a frame of mind that means I'm overeating, because it doesn't happen. We'll talk about this later, but I don't always do it. I'm very up and down like a roller coaster. But when I'm in that point of overeating massively, I hate it. I actually, and back in my past when I was in my sort of mid-teens, I disliked the food so much I would swallow it whole. So for me, it's about the feeling that it's creating in my stomach and within me, I guess, emotionally, rather than the food itself. And then almost an addiction. I'm like, I've got to have more. I've got to have more until I can get that feeling what I'm looking for. And the feeling I'm looking for is being so full I can't think about anything else.
Right.
So I think it's a blocking situation and a relationship with food that started, and I know exactly when I gained weight when I was 4. My mum's told me about it. Is what I'm really after is feeling so full that I can't think of anything other than how sick I feel and how unwell I feel, and I don't then think about everything else.
Right.
And then the moment that then passes is why then I eat a bit more, because I'm like, oh, I feel all right now, I can fit more in. Well, clearly I'm not hungry, and clearly I don't need any more. It's because that overwhelmed feeling has passed and I want it back. Subconsciously, I want the overwhelmed feeling back. So I actually hate food when I'm in that situation, because I'm literally almost, I could eat 3 biscuits and that would be enough. And everyone's like, well, I can't finish it because they're so yummy, which it is. There's a bit of greed, but actually it's about just caning it. I won't spend all afternoon doing it. I'll try and do it in about 10 minutes.
Right.
I'm like, well, it's done now. So it's a different thing where you're sort of crept up on you.
Right.
And all of, so that's sort of like, oh my gosh, now I'm eating too much. I'm having this, I'm having that. Mine's completely different. I'm consciously doing it.
See, I can't have anything in the house that is like sugary chocolate and things like that, right? Because I just will eat them. I know that they're there and that's all I can think about.
Burns away at you. Yeah.
So I'll just either eat a little bit and throw it in the garbage if my husband buys me chocolate. Sorry. Or I will just eat it all and think, okay, well, it's gone now. And what I find difficult, because I cook for a living, when I cook for my husband and myself, generally it's pretty healthy. And I try to be healthy. But I eat too much, and I know I'm eating too much, but I think, oh, well, the next meal I won't eat so much.
But that's really hard, because that's a physical
mind
thing.
games.
Because the more you've eaten, the more your stomach will stretch. And I mean, it's, we all know, sure, after Christmas meal, you're so full, but then by the next morning, you're like, oh, I'm starving again. Whereas normally you wouldn't, it's because you've, and we've all been there as well, when you've lost weight because you have dieted, that capacity has shrunk, and all of a sudden, if you try to eat a massive meal, you feel like you're going to split because it's so much. So it is a physical thing as well.
Yes.
You suddenly feel empty much quicker because you've got used to such a large space being filled all the time. Like, wow, I've got to have more. So I think we should probably be a little bit kinder to ourselves. Is the reason we've got there is not great, but actually there's a reality too. You do feel hungry because you've got, you've stretched that capacity. And what you just described as having things in the house, if I'm on I don't know whether to describe it as a low or a high, because sometimes it's high because I'm eating so much. So I see that as a frantic level, or a low because actually I'm in a position where I'm not in control. So I'm going to class it as a low for me. So if I'm in a low where I'm not in control, and then I am searching stuff out, we've all been there, even just thinking I'll eat the cooking chocolate because it's the only thing I can find. It's that sort of scenario. I can't have it in the house, and it's difficult because my son wants it in the house. He's 17. He's like, where's all the stuff? I want stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, and then it feeds, quite literally feeds it, because I'm like, oh, well, I'll go and get it, and then I have to go and replace it because he'll be like, well, where's such and such gone? And I'm
you've
thinking,
eaten it.
No, I've had it, so I'll have
Sneak
to replace
eating.
it. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, but I do. I was like, yeah, I confess. I'm like, oh, yeah, it, but I'll have to go and get it.
You tell him.
I do tell him. But yet, when I can visualize this really clearly, when I'm in a controlled place, which our class is a good place, I have a whole sort of family share bag of chocolate in the fridge, and I take 4 chunks out a night, and 4 little tiny nugget things out a night, and I have that with a cup of tea, and then the rest goes back.
That's good.
Now that's only when I'm in that place. If you put that there, when I'm not,
Right.
give it 5 minutes, the entire lot would be gone.
Right.
So
And then you just feel
it's a really,
sick.
it's a mental situation, isn't it, about how you're feeling and what you're using it for. But because you're using it not quite so consciously, and I think I am using it consciously, that's probably the difference.
Right.
So I can
Right.
have it in the house when I'm in a controlled way, but when I'm not, then it's useless. It's just adding and adding and adding, and it makes you feel miserable and unwell, and then you give yourself a really hard time, don't you? Like, why am I doing this?
It's like when I'm testing recipes. All I have to do is taste them once, and then I write about it on the test sheet and right? What I like, what I didn't like. But even if it's something that I'm not that crazy about, if it's sweet or carby, I'll just keep eating it and thinking, why are you doing this? I have to taste it. I have to take a picture of it as well. So I have to taste it, just take a quick snapshot with my phone so the editor can see what it looks like. And then I either, if it's something that I can freeze, I'll cut it up and freeze it. Because if it's in the freezer, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Or, freeze it for my husband to take to work. Or I'll wrap it up and go out to the garage and put it in the fridge out in the garage. He can take it for the people that he works with. Or it goes in the garbage. Because if it's in the garbage, it's gone. And I just have to control and just have one bite. If it's savory, it's not
so hard.
All those
it's
bites
almost putting an
up.
addict in the middle of a pub.
I know.
Or in the middle,
putting an alcoholic in charge of a liquor store. Yeah, it's the equivalent.
Really difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But as I said to you off here, that after this I'm not going to do the testing unless it's for me, because those recipes will have a wholesome, healthy aspect to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I just think the guilt that comes from me anyway when I eat too much or I eat things that don't help me in any nutritional capacity, whether it's my head, like my mental aspect of it, or my body, because I can feel it. If I have too much sugar, I feel it in my joints. I don't sleep properly, etc. That is something, the health aspect for me now is playing more of a role than the how do I look. Yeah, I want to look nice, but I think if you feel good, you'll look good. I don't particularly have an exact goal weight in mind. I just want to get my blood pressure down. I'm not type 2 diabetes yet, but I do have an elevated A1C, and so I want to get that down. So I just had all my tests done, going back to my doctor in 3 months, and we'll compare. So yeah. So what about exercise? What's your take with exercise?
I've always been a bit of a all or nothing sort of person. So as that sort of description I just gave you, when I'm on it and in control, I'm really going for it. I do it every day. I really notice a very quick difference. So I do lose weight, and I'm the sort, and I was talking about this with my partner the other day, I can gain it so fast, but I can lose it fast too. So the good part of this is I've got a very responsive body. It responds really quickly. We found that even over this last couple of weeks that since my surgery, I've been trying to up my sort of vitamins and nutrition and all that sort of thing. And actually, I think some of the vitamins are not suiting me, not doing very well. We noticed about a week ago, I'm so swollen, it's ridiculous. My feet, my hands, my face.
Really?
And he sort of said, I didn't want to say too much, Sarah, because I was just like,
wow.
I have gained some.
They make you retain fluid.
I think so. I don't know. I have gained weight since my surgery, but of course my movement has been so much less.
Right.
And I struggled a bit afterwards. So my surgery was 12 weeks ago now. But I did develop a blood clot, so it's set everything on a slightly delayed path, which was really frustrating. But I've accepted that now, and so I just have to be a bit more gentle with myself. And again, off here, we've sort of spoken about that, and you've given me advice, having been through surgery yourself. I just need to be a little bit sort of more kind, gentle, a bit slower with myself. But that's not me. I'm very impatient. But we've noticed that. So but what I had then also thought is, I am very responsive. So whether it's vitamins, whether it was medication, whether it's exercise, food, I react really strongly to things, which is great, because once I found the things that work well, I can latch into it and I can get quite a good, response from it. However, what I can be is dead lazy. So if I get out of a routine, I just don't do it.
Right.
And then it's that vicious cycle of when you don't do it, you do it less. And all of a sudden I go down into this slump and then it just doesn't happen. So as part of, this fresh step, it's not a fresh start, because as you just said, you can't undo everything that's happened already, and you've got all the learnings that go with it. But this fresh new step for me, quite literally, with with the mobility of my new joint and all that sort of stuff, is to put the good stuff in and then also burn it off in a good way.
Right.
So, but what I've needed to remember is I don't have to be doing a 3-mile run to actually get an impact, which is what, in my head, that's what I've had. If you're not doing it big, it's not going to work.
No, 30 minutes.
I've had to rein myself back in, going, do you know what, a walk would be fine, or a cycle on I've got an indoor bike, so I have to, I'm got to be a bit careful getting on and off of that at the minute with the muscle repair and everything, but I can get on the indoor bike and I could do that even just 15 minutes to 10.
You need a trampoline or something, like to trampoline onto it or something, like a horse.
Oh, I'll get on it and then I'm stuck. Like,
right. You just have to keep riding.
Yeah, exactly, until someone comes home.
Right. But even 10 minutes of that, 10 minutes.
Exactly.
It's all, just start with 10 minutes.
And some weights, some free
very
weights.
Important.
It's actually, I'm 47. I'm actually gone through the menopause early. And so it's really important for your bone strength as well. Weights, it doesn't have to be heavy.
So important. Yeah.
Exactly. Weight, load bearing, and flexibility. So things like
stretching.
being careful, because I've got stretching, yoga, all of that sort of stuff. So, but and I've put a lot of thought into this over the last weeks, but what it's going to require from me is a complete lifestyle change. I can't go, well, I'll do a bit of this and that. I never put dedicated time in for me to do that ever.
Right.
And as we were chatting about, I've got a busy lifestyle, although I work from home. People are like, well, it's all right for you don't have to go here, you don't have to. I travel here, there and everywhere all of the time. And what I'm going to have to force myself to do, to create some dedicated time every single day, whether that's just that I then get up earlier, whether it's just that I then get up and do some yoga, or whether it's I get up and get on the bike, or create the time. If someone says, oh, I haven't got time, you have. It's just whether how you use it. And as many sort of mentors say, we've all got the same 24 hours in a day,
right? Yes.
And so
sorry,
no, I was gonna say, so it's just how you use it. But
exactly,
do you do that?
Well, I think I fiddle-fart around a bit much, and
right,
our alarm, as you know, I'm an early riser.
Very.
So that's in part because of Lawrence, because of my husband.
Yeah.
But I'll lie in bed on my phone fiddling around. Whereas I think if I'm awake, I'll have my alarm set for 6. But theoretically, if I'm awake when he leaves, sometimes I'm asleep, I should just get up. So he's gone. Yeah. I let him do his thing. I don't want to get in his way. He's out the door at 5:30. Then why don't I just get up? Because if we've talked about this before, it's like cleaning your teeth. If the exercise part, it just becomes part of your daily routine. And if you're in a hurry, well, then just do 15 minutes. But just like 30 minutes, seriously. And I think if I did that, it would free up so much time, because I have this ping pong game in my head constantly, back and forth, about the excuse or the I'll do it later thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same about being overweight. I think if I wasn't, it would just free up all this headspace that I have, where it's I'm constantly berating myself. So I've got that going on. Plus I've got the excuse thing going on with the exercise. And I like to exercise. And I was in a good place exercising. I had to after my surgeries for my knees, after I had them replaced. But then as soon as you get out of it, it seems so hard to get back into.
Yeah.
And we're getting this new gym set that comes next week. So talking about, weights, I like working out with equipment. I know free weights are better for you to do that, but I like the equipment side of things. So anyway, incorporating that. So I just really want to get that done in the morning, get my bike done, get the,
it's like,
the weights done.
Mel Robbins says, doesn't she? Mel Robbins says that actually nobody wants to do this.
Right.
But what you've got to do is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go and
just do it. Because I think everybody says, "Oh, I'm not motivated." You're never going to be motivated, unless it's to, eat chocolate cake or something. I can be very motivated to do that.
And I think probably, and I listen to what she says, and it's about slightly more small chunking it for me. So I'm like, it just feels like such a long way off, and I'm never going to lose the weight. And I'm like, shrink it. Basically, I'm getting out of bed just to do 10 minutes. Once I've done my 10 minutes, then I can then think about the next chunk of time.
Right.
But if you then get up and think, but once I'm up, then I've got to do this instead. Just don't try and see big picture all of the time, because I'm sure that's what just weighs on you, overwhelming. It's too much. And so then if we can just think about, so once you've done your 10 minutes, let's say, of exercise to kick us off, that really needs to be half an hour, but we can build up to that.
Right.
Then the next thing to think about is what nutritionally am I going to put in my body that's going to help me now?
Right.
Because actually, if you get up and think, well, I'll do this and I'll do this, and then it just seems too big an issue to try and think about breakfast or whatever, so you just grab something that's really not going to help us. But if we then just thought, I'm not even going to think about that until after I've done this first small chunk, and it's like an overwhelming to-do list all the time, isn't it? We've all had, an A4 side of paper that's written with to-dos, and we look at it and think, wow, it's no point even starting, so I'm never going to get it done. If you had one thing written on a bit of paper, your mind would focus so strongly. You get that one done, you go, what's my next one thing?
Like a man. A man does that. So
they're really
like,
good at it.
They just,
it's not a criticism.
No,
they're so good at
they're
it.
so good at focusing. I think so.
Yeah.
Whereas I will be doing 7 different things at once. If I have a big task to do, I'll get up in the morning, throw washing on, do this, do that. Won't take care of myself. It's all the other things that need taking care of. My husband has a big task to do. He gets up in the morning, dresses. He might unpack the dishwasher and let the dog out and feed it, right? He's there. He's doing that task. Yeah. Not me. It'll be 2:00 in the afternoon before I even get to it, because I'm doing all these other things. So it's just a matter of focusing. And one thing that we had talked about, with doing this podcast, is setting a goal. Like each week, Sarah and I are going to set a goal, for ourselves. They could be different. They might be the same. Whether it be, lose 2 pounds or, drink more water, whatever. And then we're going to report back the next week as to how we've done. So it's not going to be anything, huge or unattainable, because I think she and I both do that. Set these unattainable goals for ourselves, but just attainable things so you can feel good about it, and then that will become the norm. So moving forward, it's like, okay, that's going to be every week. What am I going to do, this week?
Yeah, add to it.
Yeah, just keep adding to it. So that's something, and then we'll report back and let you know how we went with that, what worked.
So have you thought about your first one? What's your first?
My first one is going to be 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds.
Okay.
I'm going to lose that in 1 week.
Okay.
I'm going to do that. I'm just going to focus on that. That's going to be my thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I've decided that I'm not going to start to focus on to begin with. I'm not going to focus on my numbers to begin with. I think because I need to get more mobile. So I feel really creaky and old since having this surgery. And I'm like, it's literally doing my head in. And even my son's a bit like, come on, when are you going to get back to normal? And, in a sort of slightly supportive, slightly frustrated, which I am also. Right. So my first goal is move. So I think regular, every day, something. So I'm not going to say to myself it has to be cycling, or it has to be walking, or it has to be swimming. But every single day, I'm going to dedicate myself some time to do some proper movement. So that could well be the yoga or anything. I'm not going to dictate to myself, but I have to do it every single day. A 15-20 minute carved out bit of time that every day I'm going to do some movement. Yeah,
something
and
for
actually
you.
start to help myself get better.
Right.
Because this is, I just feel that I've spent 3 months, doing what I needed to do, but almost with this, when am I going to feel better sort of attitude. And
sorry, I'm laughing because Sarah has a hip replacement and thinks that she should be up and just everything back to normal after
well, I
it.
do.
And
in a
I
way,
keep telling her after 2 knee replacements, saying it takes a year to 18 months for things to all grow back again. So be patient.
But in my head, I don't, in my heart of hearts, I don't feel like I've been doing anything to help myself.
Right.
And so I think that's the bit that's kind of niggling away at me, saying, so what have you been doing truthfully? I'm like, well, not a lot,
right,
if I'm honest. Yes, I've been doing the resting, and yes, I had to, enforced couldn't get out with sticks, and now I've got one stick and I've got none and all that sort of thing or whatever. But outside of that, I haven't truthfully been taking care of myself. And that's where I feel like I've been letting myself down a bit.
Right.
So, and so maybe that's a longer dedicated physio session every day myself, doing the exercises or whatever. I've been chucking it in as and when I can, or not at all. I'm like, oh, I've run out of time today because I was driving to Cirencester twice and working and wrapping and cooking and dog, all of that stuff. And another day goes by. Oh, well, tomorrow I must do a proper, no more. I need to help myself, and I do. I know I need to be a bit more patient, but that's the thing I think is I feel inside as I've been cheating myself a little bit,
right?
Because I have been dedicating what I need to do. So as I say, maybe that is the physio exercises, or maybe it's the yoga or the psych. So if I can start, I think I'll feel already that I'm giving myself something like the best help I can do, rather than it just being like this whole, well, it will just miraculously get better on its own, which
start with the physio exercises. That's so important. I still do some of mine for my knees, for the flexibility.
Do you know when I do mine, because I don't sleep well, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh, I'll do some now.
Oh, God.
Which probably doesn't help me go back to sleep.
Do it before you get out of bed in the morning. But that was something, I was diligent about that, I have to say. I would do it morning and afternoon. And, I wasn't working because I didn't for, a couple of months. And so I was, really good about that. And then as soon as I start working, obviously everything.
That's probably what's happened.
Yeah. Now, that's why I'm like, oh, I'm so busy with work. I don't have time to exercise. Or, I said to Sarah, currently we're not sleeping. My husband and I are watching TV from outdoor lounge chairs that you use at the beach, because we just sold our lounge and we have to wait for the other one, and that sort of stuff does my head in, and that sort of thing can easily spiral me. People that maybe don't care about that will be thinking that's so weird, but I like everything. I have a bit of OCD, if I'm completely honest. I like everything to be in its place. So I just have to think, okay, it will all get sorted, but this is me and making my health a priority. That's so important. It's not necessarily New Year's resolution. Like I said, this is my new book. This is my new, chapter, not a chapter, my whole new book. And
I think it's the same, because I've got, it feels like, and we've talked about this, because obviously we know each other a long while now, but over the last sort of 12, probably 18 months, I've said many times I can feel something coming, like something's coming for me. Yeah. And it's going to be different. And it has to be drastically different for me to feel well, for me to feel fulfilled and actually live this life that I want to live. And we all have the chance to, and, we're in a fortunate position. We have the chance to do that. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's many, many, many people that don't have the opportunity to do some of the things that we're talking about. So it's a real waste. It's wasting that opportunity. It's wasting our own lives.
I feel like that about my new knees. I think I've got these fantastic new knees, and now I'm having back issues, but I'm having back issues because I'm overweight. Yeah. So, The
And
new knees,
it's
that
like
was
my
a
son,
big investment.
I want to do things with my son. I want to go paddleboarding, and he's about to finish college, and we've got a year ahead of us, or probably a year and a half ahead of us, where we can go and do things. And we're talking about traveling and doing different stuff. I will always be doing that with a slight yes, but I can't do that, or yes, but, or an embarrassment. You feel embarrassed. You're like, I can't get on there because I can't get off it again, or those sorts. The reality is that's true. There's lots of things you cannot do, or you avoid doing because of you're not going to be able to do it easily, or you're going to get stuck, or physically I can't physically do it because my leg wouldn't do it. Whereas now, hopefully by the time the second one's done, I'll be able to do all of that. So don't waste it, and I think that's what I'm at this point. I felt it coming and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know whether it was going to be a new career path or whether it's going to be a new house. Potentially all of those things could still happen. But I think for me, the foundation of all of this is my health. So I don't have to be a certain size. I don't have to be a certain weight, but I have to be mobile and I have to be healthy to the best of my ability. We can't control everything, can we? And that's scary, but the best of your ability, you can control what you put in your mouth with regards to, junk food or the nutritional benefit to what you're eating. Each of us can do that. And so then it's those sorts of things is the control and the choice and the bigger goal. So even though we're going to small chunk this, you could say, oh, but what harm would that do if I just do that now because it's a small chunk? You just think, yeah, but today's target was whatever it was because of the bigger goal.
Right.
And that's the thing we need to keep in mind.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a really good note to leave it on. So until our next podcast, we will chat with you soon.
Speak soon.
Bye now.
Bye.